Well, it's weird. We did Pumco Weekend Warriors Brew Crew. Kelly Crush.
Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. We're going to call the regular council meeting to order at 6:32. Ms. Monroe, if you'd like to call the roll.
Mayor Don Barnard.
Here.
Tiffany Hollis. Here. Ryan Green.
Here.
Casey Lynn.
Here.
Jeff Barr.
Present.
Wes Cobble.
Here.
Bob Orsini.
Here.
If we could please stand for the invocation from Paul Grice from the Johnstown Independent Baptist Church.
First, let me thank you for the opportunity to come and pray for you. One of the hallmarks of the American government is the fact that we still gather together and we still recommend God as being the authority in our lives. Let's pray. Father God, we're grateful, not just for the time and the day, but for the freedoms that were incorporated into our way of life. As we go through this season of election, and there's so many people at each other's throats, torn by ideologies and torn by political sides, I'd ask, Father, that you would knit this group together, that they would work as a unit, putting aside some of their more heartfelt, deep convictions, not for sacrifice, but for gain, that they might find common ground in dealing with the issues of our day, from marijuana to traffic lights to all the things that are on their agenda. I'd pray tonight that you would knit them together and allow them to work in a way that is not only productive, but is also glorifying to you. We'd asked also this night, as we do gather, that we would spend the time wisely. And we would spend it with an understanding that all of our days are short. All of our lives have a limit. Let us use them to the fullest capacity. We'd ask now that you would just watch over and guide this meeting, protect it and lead it. And I ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. First item on the agenda for us is the approval of the agenda. Everyone has received it. Are there any changes, or what does council want to do with this?
Motion to approve is written.
Second.
Are all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, action on minutes. We all received the August 6, 2024 minutes. Does anyone have any changes or alterations to it? What was the will of council?
Make a motion to approve as written.
I'll second it again.
A second.
I'm going to do a roll call just because you were absent, Wes. Casey Lynn.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis. Yes. Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Wes Cobble.
I will have to abstain. I missed the last council meeting.
Thank you. Jeff Barr.
Approved.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
Okay. Citizens' comments on matters not on the agenda. Do we have anyone that would like to speak or turn in a slip tonight?
I did not receive any slips, but
It's over there.
Oh, sure.
I
Okay.
just have a quick comment.
Okay.
Last week, while we were at the Historical Society meeting, a comment was brought up about the trailhead and the Mastodon site, and wondered who's in charge of maintaining that, because it's not in very good shape right now.
You talking about the water issues?
Yes, the water, and I guess there's some green moss and stuff growing on the bench.
So, Sean, you guys are working on to fix the water issues over there?
Yes, if you would like, I can
Yes.
probably try to give a 1-minute summary. I don't
Okay.
want to
Yeah.
go further than that unless you are agreeable.
No, that's good.
So there has been a tile at some point had gotten severed, is our best case analysis. Whenever we went in and looked at the site, it's obviously had more water standing there than it's ever had before. So the city, working with its engineer and actually working with the developer that's already on site and has a lot of the elevations, working together, it may be the same or better. We're hopeful that it's better. So that conversation actually occurred today with the engineers connecting, and everyone seems to be on the same page. So more than likely, what we'll see in the next month or so, provided the weather lets us operate, is an under drain being cut into that particular area to alleviate some of the water that's standing there. allow that path to be more accessible. It's been underwater for quite some time, so that's probably why the maintenance of that particular site has went downhill a little bit. Our guys are just not able to get in there. So recognizing it, I think spring was the first time we realized it, went out and assessed the situation. This is what they came up with. And hopefully, like I said, next two months, we're hopeful that the work will be done and the site will get back to its usual self.
You said there was a bench that had moss growing up?
Yeah, there was a bench that was donated from, I don't know if it was the Boy Scouts or what, but apparently, you know how the siding gets green on it? The bench is doing that too. So it kind of needs to be.
Power washed or something.
Can we get Jack's guys?
Yeah,
Take a look.
like I said, it's there for a while. You couldn't access it. You would have had to wade through 2 feet
Oh,
of
so
water.
it's down in that area?
Yeah.
Okay.
But now that the water has receded because we haven't had as much rainfall this time of season, it's now probably accessible, the best it's ever been. So we can probably get some guys out there. We'll get Jack and his crew. But the long-term solution, or at least mid-term solution, will hopefully be worked on this year.
Okay,
Thanks, Sean.
You bet.
thank you. Okay, anyone other citizens with comments? Okay, this is my least favorite thing to do. We have 2 executive sessions that we're going to have to leave the room for. I apologize. We'll try to be back as soon as possible, so. I make a motion that we move to executive session, discuss imminent court action on 2 different items, to have all of council, city manager, and the 2 attorneys present to represent these areas.
You may only need one attorney present for each. They have different subcategories that they're specialized in.
Right, but, so 1 attorney for each one.
I'm going to
Because
defer
they're
to the clerk.
different.
There's going to be 2 different attorneys, right?
Just, yeah, 2 different attorneys, if you want to just, so they're both going to have counsel, the city manager, and the respective attorneys.
Attorneys, okay.
They don't overlap in any way that there's value of having both in there for both meetings?
They're separate topics.
Just making
that I
sure.
understand.
Yep.
Good question.
Second.
Okay, Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Cobble,
Yes.
Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
Dave Seelan,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Ted Hollis.
Yes.
We will be back as soon as possible.
Camera's on.
Okay. It is 8:34, we're reconvening. We're going to move to council committee reports. Planning and zoning, they met August 13th, their next meeting is August 27th at 6:30 in council chambers. Is there anything to report from that meeting?
Oh, we had a great meeting. We just kind of went through some things. We did talk about marijuana. We sent that back. We want to get some guidance before we dip our toe into that. Other than that, not much.
Okay. Design Review Board met the same night. Their next meeting is August 27th. I was hoping you were going to make that longer statement, Ryan, so I could chew my. Their next meeting is 5 PM in council chambers. Is there anything to report from that meeting? Teresa? Is Sean's chewing?
Yeah, I made minutes. They had a couple of tabled from the previous meeting. They approved the covered, actually, no, they didn't. The covered porch on Lakeview, they need to see some material samples. The pavilion for Concord Crossing East was approved with the pavilion and the pickleball court, so that's exciting. They tabled an application for solar panel. Approved some siding over in the Commerce Boulevard, the Greenscapes building. Approved a garage addition, and 62 car washes getting a facelift.
And one piece of significant information as it relates to solar panels that I think you should be aware of. The board has decided to take the position that anything that is a solar panel on a roof that is visible from the street, they are not looking to approve. And that message is being given back to that specific applicant. So that is going to be something that they can carry forward, and it is their discretion as that board to make that decision. But I wanted to.
Is that residential and commercial? Both?
We haven't had a commercial application to us yet, but my assumption would be both. The conversation has specifically been to the residential applications that have been in front of them. So I just wanted to let you know that is a firm position that they've taken kind of internally, policy-wise. It's not written in any document, but they seem to all agree moving forward. That's the direction.
It's visible from the street that the house is on, not, but from a street that might be to the backside of the back
I
of the
asked
property
that
line?
same question, and I tried to, be like, well, what about the neighbor in the back, and what if it's on the curb? They said visible from the street if you're looking at the house directly from the street. I said, okay. So,
Okay.
yep.
Finance, we met tonight. Our next meeting is.
sorry.
Go ahead.
They don't want to see it from the street, is what they said. Does the applicant have any kind of recourse?
I believe if a determination is made that they're not going to approve it, then they would not be issued a COA. The applicant has an appeal process laid out in section 1187. I can find out specifically what that appeal process is. At first memory, I believe that appeal process goes to zoning. And then after zoning, I believe it would go down to the county. But I can check on all those.
I'd like to know if that applicant has recourse for the sake of due process.
There is definitely due process associated with it, and it's outlined specifically in our ordinance from an appeal process. And then after that appeal process is exhausted at our level, I believe it would then go to county.
Does the applicant know that they have a due process of appealing?
We do not make it a habit of letting an applicant know the next course of action if we vote against what they're proposing.
That's been our culture, right? That's been our culture. That's been our culture as a city,
To
not inform them. Any applicant, if there is a recourse for them, that's been our culture not to inform them. Am I understanding that correctly?
I would say that's been consistent with what we've done in the past. I don't know that we've ever adopted a policy or anything like that.
But the culture is that that's what we practice. That's our culture, is not to inform people of that they do have due process.
Culture is a funny word. Culture is almost,
Let me
It is
rephrase.
not customary for us to sit here and say, these are your, if we voted you down, these are your processes you can take. It's on them if they want to continue it. to figure out what their process is.
Now, if someone wanted to find out what the process is
They
that
could ask.
available, like on our website or?
It would be
Well, they can
available in
call us
ordinance.
and we'll tell them.
Okay.
It just hasn't, in the past, our past practice has not been to, as soon as a denial has been issued, pick up the phone and say, hey, you have an appeal process that is this, this, and this that you can follow if you feel you've been aggrieved.
But it is in the ordinance, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Do they get a denial letter? Is that what happens? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just asking.
So it'll be,
Standing there.
it'll be stamped, denied,
Okay.
and then they'll get an email or physical copy, however.
Or they
it's
come to
issued.
design review
There.
too? Okay, they're at the
Yep,
meeting.
absolutely.
Gotcha, okay.
Is any, do they, if they're at the meeting denied, do they also get a follow-up? Is it also practice to get an email?
So
Because their application was submitted electronically, correct?
sometimes they're submitted physically and electronically. So what'll happen is at the meeting, usually the vote happens and they're there and they're aware of it. But we still do follow up with documentation because they submitted a COA or certificate of appropriateness and it'll be denied. We'll stamp it and then, or approved. And that copy is then given to the applicant so they can have it for their file.
So if this council person wanted to take up that this person believes that all applicants, if there is a recourse of due process afforded to them, I believe that they should know it and that we should be transparent of informing them so that they know they have that, because there may or may not be timelines with it. Why would we, I'm not trying to talk about it here, but there's got to, it is our job to, if it was appropriate to change that practice, to memorialize it, whether it's by resolution, ordinance, or direction thereof, or is that solely at the design review board level, only at the planning and zone?
I mean, I can tell you from the planning zoning perspective, I mean, I don't know how the chairman of design review runs their meeting, but, from zoning, I at least come in and I try to have a nice segue at the end, because I understand if we deny your permit, you're understandably probably not gonna be happy.
Okay.
And typically I lead with the segue of, that's our decision tonight, follow up with staff for any questions. And, we're trying to move along on the docket at the time. But, and even if we pass it, please reach out to staff with any questions. So we wanna have a brief transition, keep the meeting going and.
So am I reading
they were
between
more
the-
than welcome to call staff the next
Am I
day and
reading
say,
between
"What
the lines correctly, Mr. Green, that you would also be in favor of informing people that they have due process and there is an appeal from the planning and zoning?
I mean,
perspective?
it would be how council decides to do it. We can outline that in our rules. I mean, that could be something in the rules.
It's not addressed in any way in the rules.
Yeah, it's not addressed at all. And I mean, each committee has the ability to have their own rules. Typically, they just adopt councils. But that's something that we could outline in those rules. But
think-
typically, we just try
I'm
to.
not trying to work it out
brief
tonight, but I
segue.
certainly feel like we should be having this discussion of, I mean, we afford people their due process and rights when we arrest them, that they have the
So you're
right
saying,
to.
like, maybe like in the introduction of the meeting, they can say like, this is the process that you are blah, 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 now you see the applicants.
Can we put it on the form that they fill out?
I'll tell you what, for the sake of time, I'll make it a note. We'll schedule a rules committee meeting. We'll discuss it in rules to kind of vet out different processes, see what we can come up with and bring it back.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Moving on to finance, we met tonight, our next meeting is September 3rd at 4:30 in council chambers. Noted that one is the earlier one because of safety and service, so my fellow finance guys know. We discussed a few different things. One is the garbage local waste contract is up for renewal, so that you guys are aware of that. The other one is SIA Media, who is doing our media relations, stuff like that. If you guys remember, when we contracted with them, we told them that if they needed subscriptions, they need to come to us. We didn't want to be a blank check. They've identified 3 items for their services. It amounts to $75 a month. what does council want to do?
You didn't pull it out of your wallet?
We told them that we didn't want to let them just do it. I think $75 a month is pretty minimal. It's for MailChimp, which we used to have, but Teresa's ended that service, so that's something we used to have. A website platform, you utilize WordPress, so we're going to move back to WordPress, which is what we used to have, and Teresa said it's much easier. And then something called Common Ninja. So this all totals to $75 a month. Is council okay with letting them?
Yeah, this furthers our initiative to increase communication, access, in type, primarily print or emailed version of communication with the community on what we're doing and what's upcoming. So,
Okay.
normally an administrative function, just because of the increased scrutiny that we requested on the onset, it was brought before finance.
And this will help them increase emails, everything with the community, so.
Our, I just have a question. about
Yep.
that. So our system that we have that Teresa uses for texting and phone calls to notify, whether it's like a road closed or what, I don't know what it's called. The school used to have.
The alert.
Okay, the alert system. Does SIA Media have access to using that also?
I can
Just
give them
curious.
access. It's currently a platform of my civic clerk, but, they've seen it, I showed it to them.
Okay.
So,
It is a fascinating program if you ever see it. She can actually draw a line around a certain area and say, contact only the people in these certain area if there's a gas leak or something. So it's,
Oh, yeah,
it's a
that's awesome.
really neat program.
That could be applied to zoning too.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it a cost per use for that system, or is it just
no,
like a
it's an
fee?
annual
Annual fee?
fee
So it
added
doesn't
on
matter how
to my civic clerk
Okay.
umbrella.
So it's like, we can use it unlimited?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure how that worked.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
The WordPress piece, does that supplant, is that replacing something else, or is that just a swap, or is that an actual increase, or is it a money going out and money going in type deal?
We currently use Squarespace.
How much is that per month?
I don't know.
So it's gonna be
What I'm
awesome.
asking is one
I'm not
displacing
sure.
another?
Do you know, Dave? Do you pay Squarespace? I don't know what it comes to.
WordPress isn't typically that expensive, but it's usually a better hosting platform.
Yeah, it's what Teresa said.
We had it
Is it
before.
for our
Do you
website?
need to make a motion for the $75?
Yeah, I can tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I give you all a gift.
You just need like a nod, yeah, go
Yes.
ahead. I'm nodding
Yep.
yes.
The website platform's $39
Website
a
went
month.
down. A credit card didn't work. I used my personal one. I don't have a receipt, so I'm eating it
230 per what?
for the year.
Okay.
Oh, is that for the Squarespace? Oh, that's right, when that went down.
So, yeah, and that's basically what I'm asking, is that, if we're supplanting, and it's not a full increase of 75.
No.
No, it's not.
Some's going out and some's going in, right? So,
We're gonna
I'm
cancel
good,
one and pick
that makes
up
sense,
one.
then.
Okay, so it'll be less than 75.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good with that. Safety and service, they met, no, they did not meet.
Nope.
Oh, no, they meet on September 3rd, sorry,
We'll
at
meet.
5:45 in council chambers.
Yep.
Okay. We received director reports from chief of police and city manager. To move through these, did everyone review these, and do you have any questions for either one?
I had a couple. Chief, I saw that the traffic stops more than doubled, it looked like. Just kind of curious what might have sparked that from June to July.
Active officers.
Active officers, all right.
So, their motivation goes up and down. I don't really have an answer for you.
Okay, all right. Could be the weather then.
I do have something on the service side. Unfortunately, Jack's not here, but I will convey this anyway. We did have an issue in Leafy Dell with sidewalks and the construction project that's going on. All that was remedied prior to school starting, so I do want to give a shout out, and I appreciate that for getting that done. Repaired all the sidewalks, mowing's been done. I think they traded 10 mounds for one large mound, but we'll continue to see progress, hopefully.
They're very active over there.
If I can
What's-
say on that, I do worry about the kids walking home from school, because I notice a lot of that earth moving equipment there, they're still kind of actively doing it at the end of the school day. And I happen to notice really, if any were going down that side of the sidewalk there, but it is a concern, maybe it should be blocked off or something.
It's gonna have to be something that we watch, and I know there is a curb cut that's gonna happen there, so the construction will eventually spill across that sidewalk, so that might be something that we need to watch and at least have some hours of, some working hours observed.
Well, that'd be a communication to the school so they can try to get the kids on the other side of the sidewalk though.
And there is a full sidewalk on the other side, too.
Full sidewalk. alternative.
Yeah, so maybe we wanna close the
Just
sidewalk.
close that sidewalk,
Close
probably.
the sidewalk on that side and have them put a
Back
sign
down to the
up.
four-way intersection.
Maybe we can ask the construction company, that whenever they're doing work over there, they block the sidewalks so kids can't walk it.
If we just identify a date span and we give them 2 weeks, sidewalks closed regardless, 2 weeks. I mean, that's typically how they would do it, like downtown Columbus. You would just see they're gonna be overhanging this area, sidewalks closed for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay,
So transportation plan. Can someone let our chief, I'm asking you to follow up with the rapid flashing beacon there at the funeral home on North Main Street. The funeral home side, when I push the button,
It doesn't work.
one side works and the other side doesn't work. I think like when you're coming,
So I got stopped last week. And male and female were crossing on their bikes from the funeral home to, so basically West East.
okay,
And it worked then. Is this something more recent than that?
I was.
I mean, I can have it. Send it to Jack.
It was last week sometime,
Okay.
don't know when, because Zev and I went for a walk, and we crossed, and I hit the button at the funeral home side. One side of the lights, southbound, northbound worked, but I feel like southbound did not work, even though I pressed the button on the funeral home side.
Not side to side, front to back.
Yeah,
So if you were sitting on the one side that worked, they would work. So I just have Jack do a check, or you guys just do a check, see what's happening.
That's Jack.
and if you ever see a light,
I would tell him if he was here, but I figure next best person to tell is you. If you could,
and if you guys ever see a light that's not working, let Jack know, because that's usually the fastest way to get it fixed. This weekend, the light at Jersey and 37 was acting weird, and Jack didn't know about it for a day, so if you can let him know, he can get it fixed faster, so.
Speaking of lights that are down, over at the Legion Hall, they have a pole that's down.
We talked about that tonight. So we talked about that in finance tonight. They're gonna go ahead and remove that light, and the other one, we're gonna talk to the Legion, because there's another one about ready to fall. We're gonna find out if the Legion wants to put new lights up, or we're just gonna take them all down, so.
Good to know.
So Safety and Services meeting September 3rd. Economic Development, have you guys had a meeting or going to have a meeting scheduled soon?
Yes, we met July 10th. We actually met with Tech Rubber, or TRC, however you want to refer to them. I think everyone's probably aware they're doing a pretty big expansion that's under construction. I think, Wes, you asked how many they employ, and I think it was 170. That's what was in my notes, that they currently employ 170 people. They're currently in 13 countries. They just added South Africa. And I think, I was really impressed just because, and their product line and all of those kind of things.
They have so many different product lines.
It's really impressive, so, very impressive. And I've, been familiar with tech my entire life, and I learned a lot in that meeting, so it was exciting. And that they're expanding. There was one piece of information which we don't have to discuss tonight, but I do want to put it on the radar. They, with their expansion, they asked the status of the road that was promised from connecting their expansion to Commerce Boulevard. So that's something we definitely need to discuss.
I think, Sean, do you have a status on that road project? What is, because I know that came up about a year ago. If you could explain.
They said their timeline, they're expecting spring of 25, I think, to be up and running, so that's what I had in my notes.
Trying to figure out a way to have an offline conversation, just because.
You and Tiffany can talk about that offline. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I just,
Okay,
I figured that was
yeah,
probably.
okay. We're all good with
I
that.
want to protect all people that are part of that conversation. That's why. It's nothing
Nefarious.
or nefarious or anything like that, but I do want to protect the confidentiality of those conversations.
Okay, so you guys can meet afterwards. Okay, anybody else for any committee reports that they'd like to Okay. Chief of Police, we'll go back to you, Wes. You had some questions, multiple questions, you said?
It was just the one, and then I had one for Sean for the
Okay.
city manager report.
Hit that one.
Okay, Sean, on your report, 5, again, I'm just going by notes I wrote down here, so, Morpsey has verbally agreed to pick up the balance previously being covered by Alcats for the Leafy Dell signal. Just curious what that balance was.
So you missed last week because we talked about,
Oh, you did?
well, we kind
Oh.
of, we found out that there were going to be repercussions if we changed, and Sean found out more details on
Oh,
that, so.
okay.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
No, and the actual explanation was a lot longer. And the report, manager's report, was a little bit different than what you see here. My computer had an issue, and it's still having some issues. But the report that I originally had drafted had a little bit more detail, but that report was erased, and so I had to cobble something together in quick order so that Teresa could get the packet out. So I'm glad you asked. Morpsey, some of the, which wasn't discussed in here, the right-of-way conversation is gonna start happening this year. That portion has been dedicated by LCATS. I believe, if memory serves me correctly, to the tune of like 200,000, ish, give or take, is what LCAT's participation is with that. If we move to Morpsey, there's another 952,000 that LCATS was on the hook for. I don't want to say hook, but we're obligated to help the city of Johnstown with for the construction piece. Our shift to Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, what brought up, I want to make sure that we're not losing any funding, and after further investigation, it was made evident that we could, so I put the question back to the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission and said, hey, we've got an issue, I don't think council wants to move in that direction if I'm going to lose $1 million of funding. LCATS said we are willing to step up, and
Morpsey said we're going to step up.
sorry, thank you. Morpsey said we're willing to step up. Now, that has not been inked. I'm meeting with them next week. Schedules all run together. Next week to go through some of those details with LCATS and Morpsey, and I believe ODOT as well, to kind of finalize those before you all make a commitment to move to Morpsey. I want to make sure that this is pretty ironclad, that this funding is associated with it, and that we're going to be okay. So, does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Great question.
Any other questions for?
No, because the other one I sidebar with Sean, so.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
There was a quick update on the union negotiations.
Thank you.
If I can softball this, Ohio Council 8 has been elected to be the exclusive representative for the full-time employees of the city wastewater, sewer, streets, and water department. So that process is started, and in the very near future, probably within the next 2 to 3 months, the city will have the opportunity to engage in those negotiations with our staff and work together and put together an agreement for wages, hours, terms, and conditions of employment. So we look forward to that opportunity, and that all will be probably taking place here in the fall this year, and we'll let you know how those continue to go. We'll probably have the mayor a part of those. I'm sorry, Donnie, ahead of time.
Oh, can we talk about that off in
Yeah,
finance?
absolutely. Yep.
Okay, anything else on Sean's report? Okay, hearing none. Item number 12, council decision on zoning map amendment, that is still tabled, correct, Ms. Monroe?
Yes,
Okay, so have we heard anything from Mr. Nyberger on this?
I have not, have you, Sean?
I have not. The applicant has not reached out to the city. It was per his request that we table it. There was some unforeseen things happening, not related to this, but with his life, that needed to hit the pause button on
Okay.
this.
No explanation necessary, so.
Outstanding.
Item 13, table legislation. We have two ordinances, 17-2024 and Resolution 2024-28. There have been a lot of discussions, a lot of questions about cannabis, more than I thought I'd ever have in my life. So we requested from Frost Todd Brown to have someone come. Close. Have someone come tonight who specializes in this and try to answer any questions that we could possibly have on this. So We have that individual tonight. Council all met him in the executive session. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to give us a brief overview of the marijuana in the state for the recreational use, how it impacts cities, what cities' rights are and what cities' rights aren't?
I'd like to do that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Anthony Severin. I am one of Yaz's associates, here to talk about this issue. Want to take an important step back to remind you of some important background. Initially, I want you to keep in mind there's a lot of unknowns with this topic. There are some reasons for that. One is which the regulations that council actually adopted on this at the state level deal at this point primarily with licensing and applications for licensing. There's not a whole lot of substance there. The regulations that the state recently proposed just 2 weeks ago deal mostly with operating requirements, ownership, financial interest, name changes, financial responsibility, waste disposal, stuff that the operators mostly need to know and follow. And then finally, just as an aside, because this law was adopted by ballot measure as opposed to through the legislature, there's been some political momentum at different times to consider making changes. That hasn't gone through over the last many months, probably because of the political nature. And in fact, the elections are coming up here this November. But there's always a chance that they're gonna go ahead and make some changes that they thought were important when this was passed as a ballot initiative sometime in the next many months. We just don't have any idea what they might look like yet. The point of all that is that there's still a lot of unknown information, and it's difficult to project exactly what's coming next. Additionally, like you said, the reason we're here discussing this in the first place is because the law actually allows cities like Johnstown to have a say in whether or not and to what degree it'll actually allow adult use cannabis and medical use cannabis operations within their jurisdictions. That's carved out in the law explicitly, and it's a really rare, unusual thing. It's not common that, even with our home rule set up, that types of uses of land that, city councils and other townships have an opportunity to weigh on whether they'll be permitted or not. With these things in mind, Yez and I have talked about 3 viable responses, and we've already started these discussions in council before. The first is to really do nothing, which is another way of saying you don't pronounce anything and you allow adult use cannabis operations to operate within the city's jurisdiction, subject to certain zoning approvals and things of that nature. The second is the far other extreme, which would be explicitly prohibiting all adult use cannabis operations directly. And that's something that the law allows you to do too, through ordinances. Finally, there's the middle ground that you can take, which is more targeted action. This could mean things like prohibiting dispensaries, but not cultivators or processors, or limiting the number of operations and where they're located. It could also mean adopting an expiring moratorium, like the one that council actually voted on by motion recently. And on that point, we want to reiterate that it's our opinion that the moratorium is currently in effect. To be clear, the recent vote, even though you didn't adopt a hard copy version of that moratorium, that didn't invalidate the motion that was voted on by voice before. Those are the big things I wanted to bring out initially, and I'm happy to take any questions. I will caveat this to say that there are some things out there that are either too hypothetical to weigh in on right now, or a little more complicated that would justify a bigger response or a more competent kind of written answer that I'd like to keep as kind of backhanded.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have a question.
Please.
It's just procedural, not like in the nitty-gritty.
Oh, that is the nitty-gritty.
Well, yeah. Why did we vote a second time if there was no purpose, I guess? If we already had a moratorium in place, why did we vote a second time on that?
I can answer that.
Okay.
I told Yas, our law director, what the motion was, and he said because of the topic and just how public this has all been, he would prefer to see it in writing. So that meant to put a resolution back on just as a formality. So, I guess really I could have just put the resolution out there, it passed, But because it wasn't in written form, I wanted it to be advertised in the council packet, so.
In writing.
I did not see coming that it was gonna change.
Gotcha.
Because you guys had already voted on it. So the next day, I got a hold of him and I'm like, I don't know what to do here. So that's when I got their opinion on that and I sent it out to you guys, but
Okay.
yeah.
I was just curious, because
Yeah.
I was confused
I
too.
think it was just because he wanted to formalize it, so it was out there for the
Okay,
public.
okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
In a similar vein, my support of the moratorium was out of an abundance of caution to prevent any legal action. I believe our current zoning situation, our current rules on the book give us position to make that decision. That can also be potentially read, depending on who the reader is, as not being as clear or maybe not being as hard clad as that process ideally would be. So my thought process was supporting first the verbal vote and then the written form is that it's not a no, it's a not right now. Because the environment is potentially movable and changeable depending on what the state does, that putting a moratorium in is a clear signal to anyone that would take legal challenge that it would be easy for a judge to review and read and say, no, this is clear as day. Not, well, this zoning box was checked, but this one wasn't, maybe this can be considered. And ultimately, I think our current zoning current zoning controls on the books would allow us to win any legal action. It would cost us money to get that answer. Whereas this would probably be a summary judgment, even if it ever made it to a judge, if that moratorium was in effect. So it wasn't so much whether I was for or against. I was for clarity on what I believed was the best choice at the time in the environment of the state laws being incomplete, or maybe that's not the right word, maybe not concrete and existing over time to provide that backstop for what can and can't be done. My intention was to prevent legal action and the costs associated with it, even though I'm still fairly confident we would have a strong footing there. This just makes it simpler and less expensive if that legal challenge would ever come in that short run to the end of the year, where hopefully we'd get more clarity on the state's position, what our positions were with the home rule and the increased control that's written into the law. So I think that step from verbal voice to written form was in that same vein.
So I have a couple questions. Does our zoning actually state that we do not allow dispensaries?
Not specifically,
It
Does not
not
specifically,
specifically defined.
Okay, so if it's not specifically defined, what rights does zoning have to say yes or no then?
This is a bit of a gray area,
Okay,
and I hate to say that because there are ways you can look at this that sound a little strange, but the way that they wrote the law, allowing us to take certain actions, the best course of action is to have an explicit prohibition, saying what is and wasn't allowed. But the zoning code is still a creature of your creation, and things that are explicitly permitted can be done. Things that are conditionally approvable can be sought and approved, and things that aren't explicitly, fall into either category aren't things that can directly be allowed. So it would be a zoning-based challenge or rejection rather than a clear prohibition kind of approach. Does that make sense?
yeah, so if it goes to zoning, because right now,
Yep.
without the moratorium, so January 1st, someone says, I want to open a dispensary, it goes to zoning. Zoning makes the decision, yes, they want to. Can council then override that?
Would it have an opportunity to come to council if no one objects?
That's why I was gonna ask too, because I believe in the process of like applying for a license, like a liquor license, it has to come to council. Council has to approve it before it can go to the state as an applicant. And from what I understood, that is the same process for a dispensary. So I guess,
I have
if you don't know, I don't know either then.
I mean, to my point, you don't put yourself into that situation. You go through zoning, you give zoning a clear definition of where you want them to head. They will come in, define what this process is, It can be conditional use, it can be zoned to certain areas, all the above, blank slate, right? Because this is a new process. They make that recommendation to council, council signs off on that recommendation or amends the recommendation, whatever they want to do, but there's a clear defined process.
That's one I'd like to follow up on,
Okay.
to be really clear in a written response, to be honest. These nitty procedures are more yeses and some of the basic, marijuana in a recreational sense is more what I've, prepared for tonight. So I'd like Yas to be able to weigh in on that if possible.
Because we're the ones that ultimately have the last, or the buck stops with us.
Right.
I don't want to see a dispensary being denied or approved by zoning when it should be something that council should have the overarching say yes or no. So my fear is, with the way zoning's written right now, if they came on January 1st when the moratorium's not in place, could zoning approve it and council doesn't have a say then?
Like I said, I think that's one that I'd like to have
Okay.
Yas follow up with me on and make sure we're on the same page and have something clear that you can rely on.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor?
My interpretation of it would be that you would be ruling on a non-conforming use, and you can't do that. So you wouldn't have the opportunity to even have a hearing of that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
When we have to have attorneys tell us the answer to questions, especially something of this nature, that's why I jumped to, let's put a moratorium on it.
Yes.
Prevents any legal action. Let's catch up zoning. Let's have these conversations. Let's put things in place that is in the best interest of the community based upon our leadership roles, and then move forward.
So if we currently have a moratorium in place because it was already validated, are we tabling this ordinance until? Because
It is tabled currently.
Yeah, it's still tabled, yeah.
So we just leave it tabled and move on?
Yeah, I wanted to bring someone in who can educate us so that we all have the same information, because I think some of us are reading some things, and I wanted to hear legally what our options are, what they're not, so that we're all protected in whatever decision we make.
Understood, and we'll be able to follow up on that shortly.
Jeff?
If a council person wanted to untable ordinance 17-2024, an ordinance to prohibit cannabis dispensaries and declare an emergency, tabled from July 2nd, 2024, could a council person do that tonight? Is that a motion?
Yes.
You would first have to, you'd have to take the moratorium off before you could do that, correct?
You'd have to I would need a motion to take it from the table, and then you could talk about it, and then someone could motion
Yeah,
So
it
if I
doesn't
wanted-
impact the
to
moratorium.
pass it.
So if I wanted to take it off the table,
You would make a motion to take ordinance.
I would like to make a motion to take it off the table, ordinance 17-2024, an ordinance to prohibit cannabis dispensaries and declare an emergency.
Second.
Who was the second? Dave? Sorry. Jeff Park,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
No.
Dave Seeland,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
No.
Tiffany Hollis,
No.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Coble,
Yes.
ordinance 17-2024 is removed from the table.
So now can I make,
Discuss.
so now can I make a motion to pass ordinance? Can anyone make a motion?
Open for discussion first, right?
Well, you would
Motion.
motion, second, discussion, vote.
Okay.
Is that the proper order?
Public hearing. Discussion of council if you have.
You have discussion at council, you have public hearing, then you make the
hearing,
motion.
And then someone could make a motion to pass. Yes.
So discussion first,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's fine.
You want me to go first?
if you'd like.
I have notes.
Huh?
I have notes.
Please.
This discussion has been going on for quite a while. Again, I've spoken to a lot of members of Johnstown, citizens, parents, of everything across the board, right? We have a great partner in the town as a cultivator, and again, this is not a reflection on anything of that. This is about the dispensaries, period. I believe the impact on the Johnstown Police Force calls for services would increase for property checks, impaired driving, loitering, theft,
traffic and also responds to calls from residents who will call in concerns about the people that frequent this type of establishment. The vast majority of my objection and some of the objections from citizens is the absolute increase for calls for services to our police department. 45.5% of the time, there's only one Johnstown police officer on duty. This past week, or the past couple weeks, I visited both locations nearby, the Amplify store over near the Home Depot on Hamilton Road, and also the location in Newark on 21st Street. General rule of thumb is that there are the location over by the Home Depot is in the Columbus Police Department area. General rule of thumb is about 150 officers assigned to each zone. Newark's location is in their 6th ward of 6 or 7 wards, and overall Newark Police Department employs about 78 officers. These staffing levels are sufficient for these types of operations, and even Newark has put a moratorium on more dispensaries, legal or adult use dispensaries, recognizing the necessity to observe the impacts. If a city the size of Newark that has this medical marijuana experience has a pause of the adult use dispensaries, we should see the signaling of that action. Johnstown employs 9 officers, including our chief. I understand the topic of zoning this into areas that we feel we could compartmentalize the impact. Zoning it into light industrial areas would actually create a bigger issue, as these calls of service would pull our police from the heart of the city, further away from where they already spend the majority of their time responding to calls. It will create longer response times to assist fire departments in calls for service. And finally, if zoned into an area of light industry, we will see light and small vehicle traffic increase in the areas that see a good level of large and semi and box truck traffic. Smaller vehicles competing for space with larger trucks will increase the likelihood of accidents, something our city does not need either. Traffic, as we have seen on 62 and 37, is already a burden between the hours between 3:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. An added attraction of a recreational marijuana dispensary would only add to that traffic. Finally, we do not see a significant increase in revenue from these establishments either. The first bucket being the income tax on employees that work there. Like the lottery, the vast majority of the revenue generated through these taxes washes through the state's coffers and comes out the other side to statewide distribution. Confirming with a member of the state's commerce team, we would see 30% of the 10% excise tax that is levied on marijuana sales, meaning if a marijuana dispensary were to be in Johnstown and sold $1 million worth of product, we would only see about $30,000, about a third of the cost for one extra officer. For all these reasons, I feel that right now is not an ideal time to even consider the placement of a marijuana dispensary.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'm just curious, I'm just asking because I don't know. Do you know how many calls they have to the dispensaries that are currently in Newark? How many,
It's hard to frame because I'm not going to lump medicinal calls into the recreational use.
so they've had police calls when it was
Absolutely.
just medicinal?
Absolutely. Because there's calls for break-ins, there's going to be, there is an increased call. Even an increase of one call is going to be an increase of calls.
I'm just asking if they've had actual, because like I know when Curaleaf was here, we asked if they had any security issues or things like that out there. They've never had that at the cultivator.
At the cultivator.
So I'm just curious if they've had that at the 21st Street, I think is, well, I don't know where the other one is that you said.
The one over at Home Depot, that'd be
Yeah.
a City of Columbus.
I just was curious if they
So,
have security.
something going on with what you're saying. I've asked, the chief's brought up to me, the vape shops in town, there's 2 vape shops, correct?
Correct.
What kind of issues do you have just with the vape shops not being a dispensary, but a vape shop?
So essentially, the issue has been with our youth, where there's access, there's opportunity. So underage sales have been an issue. We've worked multiple times with Ohio Investigative Unit undercover with them, and we have issued fines whenever underage has been found to be a crime. And my issue with this is the youth. And again, where there is access, there's opportunity. They will do underage sales, and if that doesn't work, they will break open the glass. They will get what they want.
Have there been break-ins at our vape shops?
Yes. Both of them have been broken into, and every time it's been by a juvenile. So if this is in our city, we're opening that gate.
Have you had similar issues with alcohol or at the bars or with underage consumption?
Yes. No complaints as far as my tenure, but in the past, yes. And most of that is always done by Ohio Investigative Unit without our assistance.
With
They-
the liquor?
They do that on their
liquor
own.
control?
They do their spot checks
Yeah.
statewide. They don't need to involve us with that. I involved Ohio Investigative Unit because we have been receiving complaints about underage sales in our community to our youth for vapes.
Have you
It's already
had,
an issue in our school, and they can put marijuana in these vapes.
have you had, like say at the, I don't even know, but just wherever alcohol is sold, like at the drive-through or whatever, underage theft with alcohol too? Or is that,
Aware of.
it's probably more like a 90s thing. I don't know.
In your baggy pants, and you can just,
Amongst our youth now, it's vapes. Vapes is an issue. Vapes is an issue in our schools, not just here in our
How
city.
many calls are you getting from the school when marijuana, vaping, or just marijuana in general,
I never looked up that statistic.
edibles, is it,
I can tell you this, the school has had to change out their lift station twice.
it's had to change out their lift?
The lift station
It's shut down the schools.
has shut down the school twice because of vapes being flushed in the toilet and jamming up their system. It's a huge problem at the schools right now, the vaping. Organization I'm part of is looking at doing some education to parents and to kids, because that's the first thing that the school identified is that they need help with, is the vaping issues at the schools.
And I see the parallels that you're showing here, right? You know, liquor, same thing.
Yeah, I'm
And
just
I would
curious,
call
'cause-
all the same questions into place if we were asking about another liquor store. Do we need additional calls for service for liquor stores, same as additional calls for a marijuana dispensary? I don't think the added strain is there, especially with the topic as unknown as what's going on here with the dispensaries. Let's let other people figure it out and see where those cards fall. We know how to handle a liquor store. We know how to handle a drive-through. We know how to handle Kroger. This unknown, I think right now it's just what it is. It's too unknown. Again, for all the reasons I stated, I think that adding a known factor impact into our community is just not fair to our police department.
So, for our attorney tonight, if this motion that Jeff mentioned bans it, council can turn around in 2 years and say, our mind has been changed, we want to lift this.
You can do it in less.
I mean, yeah,
We did
I'm
that with
just making-
Airbnbs.
I'm just making an
Mr.
exaggeration.
Mayor, that would be the function of the moratorium.
Well, no, the moratorium, Jeff was talking about the ordinance to prohibit cannabis dispensary and declare an emergency. So that wouldn't be a
I think
moratorium.
Bob's saying that
The
the
moratorium,
moratorium
yes.
would do the
as
same
we
Yes.
stand
function.
today, and yesterday and the day before, and every day
Right.
since we passed that, there were no dispensaries going in. This is just the next step saying it's prohibited. It's not under review.
What
And
I
that
was just trying to
that
say
was
is it
my
can always be
differentiation.
changed if,
Anything we ever do can change.
Right, I
If there was a
mean,
different council 4 years from now and they wanted to change this, they certainly could.
they repealed prohibition of alcohol nationwide at one point.
So this is just a further step from a moratorium to an outright.
I do agree with this approach more than a moratorium. I'm not a fan of moratoriums because I think they signaled that you got caught sleeping. So I would say a guaranteed yes or no. I'm much more in favor of a guaranteed yes or no when it comes to zoning, because then I know where we're at. We don't have legal challenges. One question that I had, and to your point where it's unique with marijuana of being able to decide what type of use. The question that I've had before, and we've been faced with this when we were updating zoning code, is classifying definitions of types of businesses and where they have to go in the city. Because, and I've gotten information on this from 3 different attorneys with the city now, you're the third. When it comes to type of use and what building goes where, there can be legal challenges if you don't zone a legal business into a certain situation, but you're saying this is different.
This is different. The state law makes it very clear that you can prohibit it outright. If you don't do that, you do put yourself in a position of having an incomplete answer in the zoning code.
Which is what I don't want.
It has its issues. Now, to be fair, you know, a moratorium can have the same effect of saying not now, and you can also change that. And if you don't have an answer immediately, you have time to figure out what your steps are. It can be, I suppose it's a little more challenging to go back and forth by ordinance, but I understand your point.
But a moratorium would typically have a point where the clock runs out.
It does.
Right.
And then you can elect to extend.
Whereas
that, or
this
you can-
decision, although it can be repealed,
Correct.
this is a definite decision.
Yeah.
So that's why I would rather have a yes or no.
Okay. Makes sense. Any other council comments? Hearing none, going to turn to the public. Jamie, you guys have anything you want to weigh in on this? I mean, sure.
I have a question. Is any council person allowed to go down to the podium to speak as
Yes,
an individual?
yes, you can.
Versus,
Well,
which,
I think it's not clear in the rules. The rules are clear that if you're gonna abstain, you have to give a reason why, but you can still present your position as a citizen. But there is no mention of any type if you wanna present as a citizen or a council member. You have
And
both
still
rights. You have both right, well,
Yeah.
you don't lose your right to vote as a council.
You don't lose your right as a citizen,
As you
so.
present. Is there a conflict of interest of doing both? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Is it an ethics thing? We would have to call the ethics as a group. I'm not gonna take an issue if someone's motivated to do that.
If you want to speak, you can speak here.
I sent an email earlier to all of you that I wanted to pull this off of the table because I would vote for the prohibition of cannabis dispensaries and declare an emergency for adult recreational use marijuana. I want to be very clear to this council and to the public that may or may not be listening, where this council person the position I'm taking. Couldn't think of the words. So we've had discussion among ourselves. There's no public discussion.
Up to council what they want to do.
I'd like to make a motion
Hold on,
to,
before, if you're going to make a motion, you have to first declare an emergency, correct?
We got a public hearing.
Well, we did the public hearing, there was
We
nobody.
did.
Do we need to make an emergency before we do the motion?
The other thing is what happens to the inadvertent moratorium?
It still exists. It's just when it runs out, this picks up the gap.
Do we
It's a double
Make a
hammer.
motion to reconsider that,
Hold on. He's-
change course on that, and
If
then
I may.
just leave it.
I wasn't here when you passed my motion. It covered dispensaries only?
Yes.
Or all?
Dispensaries
Yeah,
only.
dispensaries only.
So if it's dispensaries only, then this action would effectively moot the moratorium because you've taken a,
no action needed.
And so if he's going to make a motion, does he have to first declare emergency, or is that all one motion?
That's one emotion.
One motion.
Just one motion.
And then
Okay, I just wanna make
another
sure.
Motion.
Hang on.
You gotta make a motion to declare an emergency, and then after that, you would then vote on the actual legislation.
Yeah, so two separate motions.
Yep.
Just making sure.
So the motion for me is to declare an emergency.
For
Is
ordinance.
to wait
For-
the second, well, this is the thing. This is the second reading.
So the second reading, you wouldn't.
We
need-
tabled it initially, so it was never declared an emergency. It was,
Your
it was,
introduction was in June, your introduction,
July.
July 2nd, it was introduced.
So the motion
This
would
is
be.
the second reading. So the motion would just be to pass by emergency, which
Correct.
would make it effective immediately.
immediately.
And then you would have another
So
motion.
just one motion. I think just one motion.
You sure? No, with the emergency. You gotta have a motion to pass the ordinance as an emergency.
I'll become a lawyer one day.
as long as we don't have any inadvertent latent effects.
You can do it
If
by,
we need to
do
take
a.
a
Do the
pause
emer-
to-
Pass by
Let's cover all the
emergency.
bases.
Cover the base, do two motions, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's my first motion?
To
The
declare-
motion would be to pass or to,
Declare an emergency?
declare ordinance 17, 2024 an emergency.
I would like to make a motion to declare an emergency to pass ordinance 17-2024, an ordinance to prohibit cannabis dispensaries and declare an emergency.
Second.
Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
Dave Seeland,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
I'm going to abstain.
So in our council rules, if you're abstaining, you have to state the reason.
I'm the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce, and I feel like it could potentially be viewed as a conflict of interest.
Now for the hard part.
Thank you.
You gotta go sit down there for the rest of it.
Okay, hey, that's easy.
It's in the rules, I'm sorry.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Coble,
Yes.
So now I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance 17-2024, ordinance to prohibit cannabis dispensaries and declare an
You can leave the emergency off on this
to
one.
prohibit cannabis dispensaries, period.
Second.
Thank you for your support, Dave.
Anytime.
Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
Dave Seeland.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Coble.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. So the next question, go ahead.
Do we need to do like a second time to cover all bases in some other form or fashion for all this?
No.
I think
No,
we're good.
You're good.
The motion's passed. You,
Do you need to have for the record Tiffany being recorded?
We 100% sure?
yeah, I did.
Okay, I didn't hear her say it.
Now, Mike.
Oh, I didn't call her vote,
Right,
just because she took herself off the.
well, she's still a part of it. You can take yourself, but it needs to be referenced in the minutes that she abstained.
She would be listed as an abstention.
I-
Okay.
She removed herself from the vote.
She removed herself into the audience, but she's still present. I would err, Tiffany,
Do I
I would
need to
err,
say I
I would
abstain?
err on the side of caution.
I abstain from both votes,
That's fine.
emergency and passing.
So my next question for our attorney is Resolution 2024-28. So this was initially put in place because at that time, the recreational marijuana cultivators, there was no license or anything granted. We already have one in place right now because of our action or inaction on this one. They were allowed to go ahead and continue. Is there a need to have this still on here since it's already allowed? What is the purpose of this resolution now? Can we clean it up and just take it off? What is our options here on this?
You could clean it up and take it off, but this moratorium would apply to other future uses that haven't been in the early use process that the current process already has. So it could apply prospectively to others. It just wouldn't affect the one that has currently been granted.
Okay, so right now, it's just tabled. There was no action taken on that one.
It will stay tabled
It was a
until,
recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission, though.
it will stay tabled until it's pulled off the
There was,
table.
Right.
we didn't have a recommendation. Our recommendation was get your ducks in order. That was the
No,
recommendation.
What was the recommendation? What are the notes?
That you voted down.
They voted it down?
No, the recommendation to council was to vote it down.
That there would be implying that there is no moratorium on commercial cultivation and processing of
Correct.
adult use cannabis.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was the recommendation from planning and zoning, is for us to reject the moratorium.
Yes.
Okay.
So currently, there is no moratorium.
There's no moratorium, there's nothing, it's just been tabled. So if a company wants to come in right now, they can apply, which is that a conditional use?
On cultivation, it's a conditional use in light manufacturing.
Okay.
I mean, I'd have to
That's
look
what
at
they
it for
offer.
sure, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure when I read it last week, that's what it said.
So right now, this being here does nothing for us, doesn't stop them, doesn't allow them, it's sitting here. So I'm just wanting to clean up our docket so that we don't,
We do, I will say, we did talk in zoning. We want to make sure that we update the code as it is on cultivation though, because obviously there's some things that we need to update, just language wise. And also, if it wants to move into any other parts of the city, we can take a look at that too as we grow more business sections of the city.
So would it benefit planning and zoning to have a moratorium, or would it,
On cultivation?
yeah?
No, because right now it can only go into light manufacturing.
And it's only conditional for medical.
And
Right, so there's nothing listed for,
you're gonna find you're in that gray area, as he mentioned, beginning with, as it stands now, it could be considered retail. We allow retail in GCC 1, GCC 2. So the fact that you prohibit specifically retail dispensaries, it makes it crystal clear. If you don't have that prohibition, I'm using retail as the example, retail, this is a retail product. If someone called and said, we want to do a retail establishment in GCC 2, I don't know that I can define whether it's alcohol retail, medical, marijuana retail, recreational, medical, or recreational marijuana sales. So that's the retail piece of it. Same thing could be applied from a manufacturing. So if we allow manufacturing of gummies or food-based products in the PD district.
I'm about ready to ask council to untable this thing. And
Please.
then my second piece is going to be to, which I'm in favor of having, imposing a 12-month moratorium on commercial cultivation and processing
Because it
of
doesn't
adult use
affect our,
cannabis in the city of Johnstown.
it doesn't affect our current business, which is who's here already. It would just let us get our ducks in a row, as Ryan said, about further.
I would just want to make sure that it does not affect our existing partnership.
By law, we just heard from our council that it won't.
Okay, I just want to make sure, 100%.
I would like to untable Resolution 2024-28, a resolution imposing a 12-month moratorium in this, on the commercial cultivation and processing of adult use cannabis in the city of Johnstown, tabled from July 22nd, 2024. I'm making that motion.
Dave seconded.
I heard Wes.
I heard Wes too.
Okay. How did I hear him and not you?
I was actually getting ready to use that.
Jeff Carr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
Dave Seeland.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
no,
Tiffany Hollis.
I probably should abstain from this also. I think that just makes it cleaner.
Mayor
I
Bartlett.
don't, does she need to on untabling something, or just on the vote?
I mean, that's a.
She could
I'll
abstain.
just
Okay.
abstain completely.
Okay, I just wanted.
Across the
Nope, you're
board.
good.
right.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
I missed that we were pulling it off the table.
Yes.
I missed that we were pulling it
Resolution
off
is
the
off
table.
the table.
Can Ryan revote?
Not revote.
Revote.
He missed the motion.
I got wrapped up in the moment.
I misheard him too. I couldn't understand you.
I will record you as a yes. Is that what you
Yeah,
wanted?
yeah, I want to bring
Okay.
it off the table,
Okay.
and then I think you know where I'm going.
So now, discussion? Would anybody like to go first?
Same position as the other. Moratorium serves a purpose, allows the gathering of additional information in response to the state's evolving legislation to this matter. So I think it's appropriate in the circumstances. Ryan brings up a good point that moratoriums are not as clear as prohibitions. As a general statement, not where he falls on this one, he'll tell us that if we get there. So I don't see why we wouldn't put a moratorium in place. It gives us the opportunity to gather information and make the best decision when the chips kind of fall down and we know where all the details are.
I concur with Mr. Orsini.
So I have a question for Mr. Green. You do not like moratoriums?
Not a fan.
Okay. But you do agree that zoning needs time to clean stuff up?
Yeah, but I think we have that time, and I think we can do it.
Okay.
Right now, it's a conditional use in light manufacturing. We do have one business over there that is located there, but it's not currently in use, correct?
Yeah, we technically have to.
So you technically have an open space. If somebody wanted to come in, they're gonna go where one is already allowed.
So they can only
move
grow
in
medical.
today. So,
Well, that location is different than our current, because as you just said, that place is only licensed for
oh, it's only for medical, yeah.
It's only conditionally permitted.
And it probably
in the
hasn't
city
been-
For medical.
Well,
Now they've
when's the
received-
last time it was used? They may have sunset on that too, the use. If it hasn't been used in a long enough time,
But
but
they've been provisionally permitted, as I understand, through the state for adult use. cultivation and processing.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to clean up our zoning code to.
The one that's been mothballed right now has a provisional
Yes.
approval for
From the state.
adult use?
Yes,
Okay.
that's from the state. They've received their provisional approval from the state.
So this, a moratorium in theory wouldn't affect them either?
Wouldn't
if
affect
they- if
that
they've
either.
gotten their
That's what
provisional?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Same as the one that we've entertained and spoken with her already.
Okay, so Bob and Jeff and I've had questions. Wes?
I'm sorry. Only one of the two has received.
Okay, that makes more
That's what I
sense.
thought.
Okay,
Maybe
thank
we were
you.
talking a different
Yes.
language.
Yeah,
The
I
other
think-
one is not in operation at the moment,
Yes.
I
No
think
operations whatsoever.
not,
And they do not have, as far as we know, a provisional
For adult.
adult cultivation.
no, they're on just medical
They're just sitting there.
from the city, conditional use.
Okay.
So does that expire or something then if there's no one currently using that? Or does it transfer over?
Yeah.
Or how's that work?
Yeah, so if you come in and you're a conditional use, you don't use it for 2 years, roughly around there, that lapses back. So when you sell that to somebody else and they come in, they can't just move right in and use that.
So if we put this moratorium in place for adult use cannabis cultivation, it will not affect the one that has their provisional, but the one that's been mothballed and sitting there, it would affect them.
Yes, unless
Okay.
they received a license that we're.
That we're not aware of. But if they do have one, it doesn't affect them anyway, right? If they had the provisional,
If they've already
It
received
wouldn't matter
something from
anyway.
the state,
Correct.
it wouldn't affect them either.
okay.
Anybody else in council have questions?
Public hearing.
Public, does anybody in the public have any comment? Ms. Hollis, you can make comments during this time if you want to. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to pass Resolution 2024-28, a resolution imposing a 12-month moratorium on the commercial cultivation and processing of adult-use cannabis in the city of Johnstown.
Second.
Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
Dave Seelan,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
No.
Tiffany Hollis. Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Cobble.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Come on back up. Okay, we've cleared our tabled legislation. I hate tabled legislation. Okay, moving to public hearings of legislation, ordinance 20-2024, an ordinance to add approximately to add plus or minus 9 acres to Johnstown Community Reinvestment Area Number 4 and declare an emergency. Mr. McNally, it's all yours.
Make it quick. This is rinse and repeat on this stuff.
Yeah, this is second reading.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, council previously accepted the annexation of these 9 acres into the city to complement the missing pieces out of that 387-acre annexation. And at a prior meeting, you then adjusted the boundaries of the TIF district to include these 9 acres. This ordinance simply adjusts the boundaries of the community reinvestment area that you previously approved to also include those 9 acres.
Thank you. Discussion?
So this emergency is to waive the second reading, correct?
That is.
No, that's to take
No.
effect.
No.
And to take effect.
Right, it's both.
But yes, that would be the motion.
Okay. And why is there such a hurry to,
Because if we had to wait 30 days for this ordinance to take effect, it would get in the way of a potential real estate sale and closing. This takes effect immediately so that we can then move on to consider with you a real estate tax exemption in connection with that closing.
Okay.
Wait 30 days, timing really gets through.
okay, I just wanted to ask. Anybody else with questions on this? Hearing none, does any Any in the public have any questions? Okay. What is the will of council on ordinance 20-2024?
Make a motion to pass it?
Motion to waive the second reading and pass by emergency first.
Exactly what she said.
Perfect. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
Dave Seeland.
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Cobble.
Yes.
Okay, now Jeff?
What?
You,
Now you-
that's to you back for the, we did the emergency.
Now you make a motion to pass.
I guess I'm on a roll. I would like to make a motion to pass ordinance 20-24, an ordinance to add approximately plus or minus 9 acres to Johnstown Community Reinvestment Area number 4, period.
Second.
Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
Dave Seeland.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Wes Cobble.
Yes.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Go get some food.
Moving on to resolution 2024-31, a resolution to create the Township Liaison Committee and appoint members. So this is something we've talked about that we want to work on with our partners and our townships around us. We talked about this last time. We asked Ms. Monroe to put it in a resolution, and we need to appoint members to this. I'd be happy to do this. Anybody else want to do this?
I would absolutely like to be part of this one.
Raise your hand if you don't want to do it. If you don't want to do it. So all 7 members would like to do it. Okay, now we can start.
I feel in my wheel, this is 100% in my wheelhouse. Coming from my 20 years experience negotiating contracts, having conversations with people that want to take something from the table, this is absolutely in my wheelhouse. Wanting to strengthen our partnership with our local townships, seeing what's best and the best ideas for all our communities, and negotiating a fair balance that everyone gets to take something away from the table. I'll share my resume and awards if you would like.
Ryan, give your spiel.
Man, I got a sweet resume too. I got a college
You
degree
get
from Ohio
60
State.
you
We
get
can do this
60
all day,
seconds,
but
man.
I'm just telling you. So I have a long tenure on council. I think I've worked with the townships, all of the surrounding Johnstown area, for a while now. I think they know me, they trust me, and I think that I can go out with an objective view. Having grown up in the township myself, I know what their fears are, where they work on things, and I think I can bring all that to the table.
Ms. Hollis?
Well, pretty much known all of them all my life. And also the area. So I guess just legacy is what I bring to the table.
Mayor?
I'm going to pull my name since everyone else is qualified for this.
Mr. Koppel?
Koppel.
Coble.
I'm thinking, I'm sorry,
Different guy.
I'm sorry.
He's gonna
The
think
neighbor's
about
right across the street, man.
It's all right, it's all right. No, I mean,
probably make that mistake again.
I am always eager to grow my knowledge base as far as, you know, getting to know other members of the community, especially with the townships. So, I mean, you know, I would definitely most be interested in trying to help out as much as I could and contribute to the team.
I'll pull my name too to try to make this easier. I feel like that I'm well represented with 4 people so far interested. Mr. Russell?
I agree with you. I'm comfortable with the folks that want to get involved and happy to step aside.
So we've got Mr.
So you got 4 and we need 3?
3, yeah.
Okay, I'll step aside and sub when somebody can't attend.
Wait.
Well, wait a minute
That's,
now.
no.
Yeah, I'm
I
okay
thought
with
you
that.
3 were the only.
No, there's
No,
four.
Wes.
Four.
It was Wes as
Dave,
well.
Ryan,
Oh,
Tiff, and
yes.
Wes.
So
Yeah.
Wes,
I would like for you not to step aside.
You, okay?
If I can twist your arm back the other way. There's always good debate. That's what I like.
Okay.
So how would you 4 like to decide which 3 go? I'll throw out a proposal. There's 3 of us that withdrew our name. I think we're fair, objectionable. There's an option to say, let the 3 of us decide who the 3 are. which means we eliminate one, or we collectively do it as the 7.
You wanna meet all 7 with townships?
No.
You're saying, oh, you wanna make the decision?
No, what I'm saying, the
Okay.
decision of who the 3 is either lies with
Yeah,
the 3 of
I'm
us that
open to
pulled,
trial by my peers, I'm good.
or all 7 of us have to decide who the 3 are. I feel like that's one of those 2 options. Just throwing it out there.
Bob, do you have any takes since you're the Rules Committee head honcho?
By the rules, this isn't defined.
Perhaps it should.
Jeff was, I mean, we could do it as a group. We all understand why there can't be 4, right? Because it's quorum. So that's the only thing defined in the rules. So other than that, there is no rules guidance here. We just have to, someone needs to make a motion, put 3 names forward, and we vote on it. Or we discuss ahead of time and, walk into that versus jump into it.
I feel like if we throw 3 names out there, we're gonna vote until we find the 3, so, and that could take a long time. I feel like the discussion
Yep,
to figure out who the 3 is, but it would only be in a democratic way. I heard Mr. Green say he'd be okay, a vote by his peers. meaning
Trial by my peers. I'm
Trial
good.
by his peers. Tiffany,
Same.
Donnie, Wes, you're
Yeah.
okay with that?
Yep.
You're okay with that?
Same. I'll
Okay.
I'll definitely add though.
You guys are really gonna dump it on the 3 of us. I didn't think that'd
Do
go
it,
through.
go for it.
Jeff, just
I put my foot in my mouth, man.
just abstain. There's a big conflict of interest
Oh, just
here.
abstain, huh?
Because we have to work together.
Are we
It's not
trying,
personal, it's professional, right?
are we, do we
Go for
want to
it.
definitely decide this evening? The 3 people?
We don't have anything pressing that this committee needs to really.
I think I might be asking Donnie and Bob, well, I guess I should be asking all 7. Do we want to get this done tonight?
I mean, it would be nice to move it along and get it done. That way we can go to our townships and say, hey, we want to communicate with you guys. We're taking the lead. We create a committee to start relationships with you guys. So,
I heard Mr. Orsini say he's happy to punt, and I'm meaning punt like you don't care either way.
No, I'm happy to punt to table it, and
And let the 3 of us set something up at the next,
we can do that because it's not,
Okay.
well,
I would say having additional conversations almost as in an interview process.
okay.
I don't know if I want to spend all that time in interviewing. I feel like I know that, I don't want to interview anybody. I want for Donnie, Bob, and I to get together somehow this week, if possible, whether by teams or in person, discuss, come
Yeah,
up
we
with
can do
the
that.
3
Let's-
names.
yeah, let's check our controls and our ability to do that,
Okay.
and how to formalize that in the right way. But yeah, I think we can do that. So I'll make a motion to table resolution 2024-31, resolution to create the Township Liaison Committee and appoint members.
I second it.
Okay. Bob Orsini?
Yes.
Dave Sealand?
Yes.
Ryan Green?
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis?
Yes.
Mayor Barnard?
Yes.
Wes Coble?
Yes.
Jeff Farr?
Jeff?
If you 4 would have all voted no,
I thought they
we
might.
would have forced us
I
to
thought
do
they-
it
I thought they
tonight,
might.
man.
Oh, darn.
I thought they.
Forcing you to talk
She's
about
asking for your vote now.
No.
You vote no?
Yeah. I want a bit of flavor.
All right.
Okay, moving to resolution 2024-32, a resolution accepting the Bigelow Drive traffic circle. Before Mr. Liggett left, I asked him if there was any feedback, if he was good with this. He stated yes. Mr. Stainer, do you have anything else on this?
No, this is accepting the traffic light, which then releases the bond. The bond is tied specifically to the traffic light, not in association with the rest of the development. There's still a punch list outstanding that needs to be taken care of. Typically, that punch list is taken care of, and then we do acceptance of the roads and start plowing and maintaining those. A little bit of a oddity with some of the circumstances last winter, so I just wanted to reiterate, this is not an acceptance of the entirety, but just an acceptance of the traffic light. As you notice, obviously the traffic light is not activated, still working through that with our engineers, and it is also not striped. Reason being is traffic light's not activated. You want to stripe it, put your crossbars in, making people stop. There has been a payment, or has been agreed to a payment in lieu of that striping, so that the developer would provide us with those funds. We could hold those funds in our coffers so that if we ever decided or needed to activate that light, after our studies have been done and resolved, we have the monies to do that, and we're not left holding the check for the total completion of that particular project.
Okay.
I do have the check also.
And we have the check.
Okay. Any other comment on council on this? Anything from the public? I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2024-32, a resolution accepting the Bigelow Drive traffic signal.
I'll second.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Wes Cobble.
Yes.
Jeff Barr.
Yes.
Bob Orsino.
Yes.
Dave Seeland.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Okay, moving forward to introduction of legislation. This is just introduction. There doesn't have to be any comment, public comment. It's just introduction. The first is ordinance 21-2024, an ordinance to accept conveyance of right-of-way and utility and streetscape easements along Duncan Plains and Clover Valley Road. Is this with the annexed land, or is this something different?
Correct. This would be with the development that's currently being proposed out there. I'll allow for Jamie to kind of interject if he has anything to add, but what we basically internally discussed is the street typologies that our expectation, anytime a development happens, we need additional right-of-way to make sure that we have the streetscape in line. So this could allow for additional lanes, street trees, multi-use trails, all of those things. Each roadway is classified as it stands right now through our comprehensive plan. So our expectation is that the developer would provide the necessary right-of-way so that we can do those streetscape projects, as well as some easements that may be necessary to put the street trees or multi-use trails into those easement areas. So that's the general gist of it. This would only be for, obviously, the property that is owned by Johnstown Land Company in association with their development. Can't obviously accept right-of-way that's outside of their ability to give. So this is specifically with those particular pieces of parcels and properties with the PD district. I'll defer to Jamie if he has anything to unpack.
No, I think that sums it up well. What we're trying to do is set a standard for future growth along the triangle around our planned development. We think that the 25-foot streetscape and landscape easement is appropriate for today and for future growth. We can't future-proof the area entirely, but by having a 100-foot street section on Duncan Plains and an 80-foot street section at Clover Valley, that is consistent with what we've been doing in the business park in New Albany. And it's also the dimensions are kind of somewhat based on learning from our mistakes in the past by not getting enough easement area for utilities and streetscape and easement. We don't know. Eventually, this has been reviewed with the TID and MKSK, and I think that they've kind of given their blessing along the standards. Hopefully, this becomes a standard all the way along Duncan Plains, but the timing of that, it'll slowly happen.
Okay, Mr. Barr?
We are the grantee, correct? The city,
Of the easement,
right? So am I reading it correctly that it says in here, the grantee shall be solely responsible for operating, maintaining, repairing, replacing, and reconstructing the improvements from time to time as grantee deems necessary? So do I understand it correctly that the easement is the city's responsibility to maintain?
I believe, and we can confirm this, but the grantee is who is providing the easement, which would be Johnstown Land Company. They're the grantee. They're granting an easement to the city of Johnstown.
yeah, we would.
You're the grantee, we're the grantor?
Yes, so we would, and then there would most likely be a third party. But when we sell the property, we want to make sure that the city of Johnstown has the appropriate land in place on either side of Duncan Plains or Clover Valley, of which we can control, so that when the time comes and it's appropriate, the city can get the necessary utilities and potentially a leisure trail too, within that 25 feet.
I'm not an English major by any means, but I want to be certain that to me, you would be the grantor and we are the grantee.
You're right.
You're right. It's listed on the top of the limited warranty deed.
Okay.
Johnson Land Company is
Right,
the
so
grantor.
it does say in the paragraph of, well, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Exhibit C. But Exhibit C goes along with this ordinance, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Exhibit A, B, and C?
Yep.
So does, Exhibit A is the map, gives the directionals, diagrams, but then Exhibit C,
Where is C?
Exhibit C is under ordinance 21
What page?
Oh, goodness. We have
Page
numbers.
51 of
We don't
61.
have page numbers on ours.
Right here too.
It's above the signatures page that, I mean, when I pull it
Yeah,
up.
we see it. We found it.
And it's the middle page, second page of Exhibit C. It does say grantee shall be solely responsible for operating, maintaining, da-da-da-da, which to me means that the city's mowing grass, mulching beds, planting, replacing trees as they die, pesticide, insecticide.
Can you come with some more knowledge of this for the second reading?
Yeah, of course.
That we don't want to be left holding the bag on having to take care of all this land.
Understood, yeah.
It also
There's-
states that we maintain it at our sole discretion, but at the same time, we want it to be nice.
Right.
And it emphasizes the improvements.
Yeah.
So there has to be improvements done before we are obligated, and then to Bob's point, it says at our sole discretion. So we can provide services for those things that be put in there, or we can not, from our sole discretion.
Your point, Jeff, is you don't want to be having to pay for mowing the grass there.
Or
Well,
fixing trees.
Mowing
or
grass
fence,
is one
whatever,
thing. If it's nicely landscaped,
Have to maintain it.
asphalt,
Yeah.
walking paths, et
That's
cetera,
expensive.
that is not cheap.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times this will be addressed in we have a business park association that's been filed and recorded CCNRs, so that the business operating at that property would be responsible for maintaining that portion of the land, or the association. So sometimes what'll happen if, like in New Albany, for example, there's the White Horse fence and the leisure trail, the walking trail, that can often be maintained by the association.
And I'll just throw this in here, from looking at this and taking a more microscopic view, my belief is that this allows and empowers the city to actually go into that area and clean it up if we so desire. Without this, sometimes if you don't have the ability legally to go access the property, you have to ask the property owner's permission. But with this easement, it gives us the ability. So if something is not maintained, we have the ability to go in there at our sole discretion if we so choose. So if something's blighted, we can say, hey, we're not gonna wait for X property owner, we're gonna go ahead and take it on ourselves. Now, you don't have to, but it allows you to. If you don't have that provision in there, you would have to go to the property owner and gain access to your easement, as far as what I'm understanding.
And what we'll do is, when we come with a final development plan for the area, we'll work with the city on seeing what every party wants when it comes to landscape screening, appropriate vegetation, mounding, et cetera.
I have no doubt that it'll look beautiful.
Yeah.
It's in the end, when I just read those first sentences, it shall be solely responsible. When we take this right away and accept it, unless somebody can tell me differently, or assurances in some other form or fashion, that's a tough, you see where I'm coming from?
Yes.
No, I think it's a great call out. I don't particularly love the word solely. I like the word grantee shall be responsible. Solely makes it sound like there's no other obligation from no other party. And to Jamie's point, we've discussed already previously in how New Albany works is there's, for lack of a better term, kind of an HOA that will be set up.
But even if you took out the word solely, Sean, grantee shall be responsible. Well, if nobody else says, hey, I'll be responsible for it, we're responsible for it.
I think what he's wants
Solely.
is more clarification.
Yeah, I think we can, I appreciate it. We can clarify
Okay.
that responsibility, because I don't think, the concern you're calling out, I don't think that was not the intent.
Right,
Yeah,
and.
yeah, yeah.
and-
Can you do it in 2
We'll
weeks?
get back later. What's that?
Can you do it in 2 weeks?
Of course, okay.
Yeah, right, because intent has consequences. Sometimes they're negative, sometimes they're positive. I don't want them to be negative.
Okay. Any other questions on council for this one?
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Just to highlight, you'll notice that mink is not included in this, the reasoning behind that, from my understanding.
You don't own
That's
land,
not
mink.
associated with the particular development that's up for conversation at this point. So mink will be another piece that comes along the way, and we'll have the requested right-of-way in streetscape and typology. Is that accurate, Jamie?
That's correct. I believe the first development
I think this
in
is
the
just
planned
for like the,
development would be
industrial
sub-area
sub-area.
1, which is industrial, zone for industrial. And we wanted to get, if you remember, we wanted to get industrial land sales going before we started bringing the commercial mixed use online. The commercial mixed use is closer to Mink. Now, Mink, the TID is further ahead with their planning on Mink than they are on Duncan Plains and Clover Valley. So we're trying to coordinate with the TID at Mink right now, and then we'll move to Clover Valley and Duncan Plains. But by establishing this with Duncan Plains and Clover Valley, that'll put us in a good position to take the second and third step with the TID in that area.
Okay.
So,
Very well. Any other questions for him? Okay, this was the first reading. We thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jamie.
Thanks.
Second item, ordinance 22-2024, an ordinance to realign permanent appropriations by modifying appropriations from one account to another within the fund and amending ordinance 24-2023 to approve necessary changes of appropriations. Mr. Delaney, if you can give us a high-level view on this, we'll get more detail when we go through it next week for questions.
Mr. Mayor,
I thought we were
Yes.
just going to leave it alone.
how detailed do you want us to go into this?
Just the
on a high
purpose of
level?
this, just the overall purpose of it.
Do you want me to,
Yeah, you can go ahead.
if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump in, just to give a high level.
Can I interject from our executive session? I thought we were just going to read it and we didn't need to go into,
That's
what I
fine.
was gonna
That's
do,
fine.
High level.
right? I think
Yeah.
that's what we discussed.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I was gonna do the high level rather than the detailed.
Thank you, Sean. I don't think we need to even have the high
Okay,
level.
we're
do
good
we?
then. Any other questions or comments on this item for tonight? Hearing none. Other business, I would like to, we had talked about NCA board and appointing members to it. I had talked to Jamie, we did some discussions on, because we're kind of in a bind of needing to get this set up soon. I think the whole council kind of was behind John Kessler, having him on it, but we're still working on the other ones. What I found out is that we can appoint 3 council members to fill the other 3 spots, say for a year or whatever, until we find the people we want to fill those spots. So,
Are we 100% sure on that? Because after we talked about it, Ohio Revised Code says it cannot be. So I'm just asking, because I looked at the Ohio Revised Code, 349.03, and it said at least 3, no more than 6 citizen, 1 member from representative from the government, and then the developer appoints equal to the number of citizen.
what was the number again?
349.03.
We are citizens.
Yeah, see, that's why I was asking, because I don't know if at that point we are citizens or government.
I would also like to make a comment that I know you reached out and I said, I'm open to the idea and discussion. I believe that there are several members, I think we narrowed it down to like 7 or 8 maybe, just kind of brainstorming, and Tiffany was gonna call up and ask of, would you want to serve on this? Were you able to make contact with any or all of
I
them?
reached out to Johnny first, but, Mr. Kessler passed away,
Right.
and the service was Saturday.
Right.
And they had some family obligations, so I'm just trying to be respectful of his time
Right.
right
How
now.
about the other ones?
Did not, because we were going to
About
see
this.
what his recommendation, yes.
When do we need this done by, Jamie?
yesterday. Story of our life.
Probably September 4th.
So the day after our next council meeting.
Well, so that gives us time, and then if we can't pick anybody by that council meeting, we decide
Yeah,
who from council is gonna do it.
okay,
How,
so,
how do we, so is it at the next council meeting, we would, does that mean that Tiffany's gotta call
Tiffany-
those people up and
Tiffany
say,
needs to
yes,
talk-
yes, I wanna serve, no, I don't?
yes.
Yeah.
And then we
And
come
that's
to,
fine.
and then.
She comes to us, gives us the names, and we vote on which ones we want.
Cause we ranked them, so we know where we're at.
And I have the list, Howie.
And it gives us time, I mean, if we don't get definite answers, it gives us time to.
Did we definitely come to a majority of ranking of, if you will, the four? Or was it more of, here's 7 or 8 names, do they wanna serve? Yes, then we're gonna come back and,
I think the
Get the
four
four.
were ranked. I think the four were ranked. And then after that. it was-
There's one on there I'd like to change.
and we did that in
Executive.
executive session, so I don't wanna call out names. I'm
Right,
just-
that's why I'm trying to be very careful.
So do we need to bring it to an interview process at that meeting? Bring all the names in and we interview them and we make a decision that night?
I don't
Well, I
think,
believe there was one that had, there was a conflict
Yes.
of representation, so we removed that from the list.
I believe that
Yes.
was a co-inhabitant.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so we still have 7.
yeah,
So if Tiffany can reach out to those 7, plus you're gonna ask Mr. Kessler,
yes.
and so she can come back with names and we can vote on those names next time.
And then we'd go in executive session on that council meeting to select those.
No, we can't do it in executive session.
Can we do it
No,
under?
we can interview
appointment
and,
of-
we can interview and
We can
discuss, but
interview
we
'em.
can't vote.
Can
So
we-
just like when we
I wasn't
appoint zoning
necessarily
members and
looking
stuff
to
like
interview
that,
them,
so-
Ryan, and, I mean.
Tiffany, is there a subsection on that?
think-
I don't know.
I'm looking at it right now.
So-
349.0.
4904.
Oh, 4, sorry.
So let me ask to make sure this is right. If we have 6 names, we can go in executive session, discuss those 6 names, the positives, negatives about them, then come out here and vote on them, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
It would be
we can do that.
an executive
Yep.
session to consider appointment of a
Public official.
public.
That way we don't vote and say no on somebody and embarrass that person, so.
Right.
Okay.
Can I say
Yes.
something? Did this happen last council?
Yes.
Because I have no idea.
Yes,
what the hell
okay, so,
happened.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
I'm
So,
like,
so last council session, we have to appoint 4
Don't
members
take
to the NCA.
vacations, Wes.
Teresa.
So we have to appoint 4 members to the NCA board, they get 3.
Four
we
dot
get
what,
4.
though?
So we had to come up with names,
It's right at the beginning.
Brainstorm some names.
brainstorm some names, who we want on this board. So that's what we did last week. Well, I thought it was gonna be due sooner, but we've got till next week. We can go over the
And
names.
some names on this brainstorm list, you do not have to be a city resident, so you could be a township resident, you could be a person that works here but lives in another city, et cetera. Right, just because there may be names you recognize, like, yeah, that's not a Johnstown resident.
So the NCAA board, it's like a semi-quasi-public, private board. The next few years, it'll focus on having development pay for development. And those funds, so the developer will appoint 3 people, and then if there's 7 board members, the city will appoint 4. At any point that there's a vote, the city has to have a majority and present. So, math-wise, right? It's,
You gotta have 3 there of the 4 appointed cities to take a vote.
correct, yeah. Now, different communities have done it differently, and in some sense, it's nice to, it's a way for the city to get different experts in different fields, whether it's infrastructure or finance or economic development, I mean, whatever it is, to start to serve for the city, because it's not a huge time, it's definitely not as demanding as council or planning and zoning or a lot of the other committees. The first year, there'll be more regular meetings, they might be monthly for a while, but after a while, it can start to become quarterly meetings. And you're kind of stewards of the money and the funds. A lot of the work is gonna get done with staff
and the developer and city council and planning and zoning, like, it's before it even gets to the new community authority board, so.
Sorry, I forgot when we were discussing that you weren't here. Sorry.
But it's a tool that New Albany's used a lot. It's been very successful. It's essentially a voluntary tax for private development at 9.75 mils. And Greg Stipe was actually one of the guys in Ohio that helped create it. Different states around the country have other concepts. They call it different things.
I think like Newark and Granville have, there's like a lot of surrounding areas have NCAs.
Yeah, and candidly, the first few years, it's really gonna be just about financing infrastructure, the timing of the infrastructure, the scope, understanding who pays for what, when, and if anybody has to get paid back, and how that waterfall could potentially work. Over time, once infrastructure gets built out, we're talking maybe a decade or multiple decades down the road, there could be funds for other projects too.
So has the developer, have they disclosed their choice names of who they have?
We have.
Oh, you
yes.
have?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So our three names are, it would be me, and then Molly Imes, who's our general counsel, and Brent Bradbury, who is the CFO of our company. Molly and Brent are also on other NCA boards, so they kind of know the routine. They'll help get it started. If you guys choose and you want Brent to be the treasurer, he's more than happy to be the treasurer too, at least for the first year to get that started and get the proper procedures in place. But once the first few people get named, we will get together and we'll have to establish the bylaws and everything else that goes along with establishing the body. But that's,
You can ask, make as many questions you want since you weren't here, so I mean,
No,
don't
yeah.
feel bad.
No.
yeah.
Okay. Anybody else with questions? Okay, so we got our plans for the next 2 weeks then? Okay, perfect. Does anyone else have any other business?
Yeah, just some things to call out. Patsy Cline coming up with the Historical Society, so they'll have a impersonator there. Whatever.
Patsy Cline. Patsy Cline's gonna be there. Never mind.
The return of.
The return of Patsy Cline. Sorry. Crazy, right? Crazy. So, here's where we are. Look, it's been a long meeting. So, football Friday night coming up. Not here. It's in Zanesville, but it's good. It's coming back. Fall sports in general. Shout out to all the kids doing that. We have the Cupola Classic Car Show coming up, Fall Fest coming up, and catch adult softball on Sundays. We had a great crowd there. So this week, so it was a lot of fun.
I would just like to say I caught a foul ball. I'm very proud of that, so.
On the fly?
Yeah, I swear. I swear. It was like
I trust you,
ESPN
but I would
moment.
say that's
I'm
more
telling you.
impressive.
What
I would
position were you
say
playing?
that.
Catcher.
I would say that.
No, wow, nice.
Yeah. Thanks.
There's a farmer's market tomorrow night. And a big shout out to the downtown Johnstown for
Yeah,
their
what about
preparations for the Summerfest. Very disappointed that it got rained out, but
it? Are they rescheduling that? Do you know?
We're working on some developments coming up. So a lot of things I think are gonna roll into, Fall Fest coming up.
Amelia was very
So,
excited about the bubble truck, so
I know.
one vote for the
As
bubble
was I.
truck.
Yeah,
we don't want to see you in the bubble truck, though.
No,
So,
not me.
it's gonna be a good time.
That's what we're Ryan.
Oh.
Okay, anybody else for other business?
Yeah. I don't know if I formally thanked Mike Giannini and the Greater Johnstown Parks and Recreation Board for putting on the Arts
Arts in the Park, yeah.
in the Park. Maybe it was done last meeting, I forget, but I wanted to acknowledge my longtime childhood friend, Mike Giannini, for doing a great job. And I know the other board members also put a lot of hard work into that. I wanted to congratulate the school board and Dr. Wagner and all those involved with the new math program that back in the spring, I think you all might have remembered, he gave us an update, but he talked about the new math program that started with fifth graders this year, where what they used to do from grade 5 to 12 in math is now being compressed into grade 5s through 10, allowing those students that completed some additional, I'm assuming college level math or advanced placement math, whatever that may be, my child Zev will benefit from that program, so I want to give a shout out to all those involved to get that program up and running.
Awesome.
Dave, first week of school.
Has been
Oh, I thought I
phenomenal.
had checked. Good.
Just be watch out for flashing lights on buses, the stop sign flaring out. Some school buses do park. They put their flashes on, but not their exit flashes. So just know that if their stop sign is not out and they're stationary, you can go around, but still proceed with caution. The convocation we had this past week, I'm lucky enough to get to wear two hats, both in council and as a teacher. So this was my first actual official convocation and was absolutely phenomenal. Hearing Dr. Wagner speak to the future, and most importantly, again, building what is coming on for our citizens, for our youth to be able to enroll into electrician-type programs, into the trades. At initial blush, there was going to be 6 positions that were going to have to transport themselves to CTEC. We had 12 applications, so that meant that potentially there was going to be 6 in the dark. CTEC came to an agreement. We're going to enroll all 12 into that program, and they do not have to transport. So again, CTEC, the school district here, doing an absolutely phenomenal job to lay career paths for our students. I couldn't ask for anything more.
Awesome. Anybody else?
We forgot to congratulate all the Johnstown youth, and for that matter, in all the area of those that showed their animals, their products and other wares at the fair, the youth. There was many of them Johnstown, Monroe School District kids that did well, won, and grand prize winners in different livestock. So congratulations to all of them.
And
a
also
big
the Fair Board. I mean, they do a
Fair Board does a
fantastic
great job, and also thanking all those parents that are parents to those kids, because they're a big part of their success as well. So thank you to all of them.
Anyone else? Okay, I make a motion that we move to executive session to consider the appointment of a public official to include all council, city manager, and go with me on this one, the clerk or council, with possible business to follow afterwards.
Second. I don't know if I'm.
You're good?
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Coble,
Yes.
Jeff Barr,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
Dave Seeland,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes. Can we have like 2 minutes?
Yep.
Yep. Long night.
Yeah, the right of way, as we're marching
Hang on.
towards this closing,